Mr. Merritt, thanks so much for coming on. I want to get right to it with the preliminary hearing is set for June 4th for the McMichaels and Mr. Bryant. What are you expecting or what are you anticipating for that day?
Well, I expect, of course, for the defense to make arguments that there is not substantial evidence that these men represent a threat to the community, that it's more likely than not that they somehow beat these charges, and as a result, that they should be granted a reasonable bond. The prosecution, of course, is going to argue that there's more than enough evidence with the video alone, in addition to testimony that's been gathered from members of that community and physical evidence that's been found that these men represent obviously a huge danger because they committed felony murder and should be held without bond.
You know, it is going to be interesting to hear maybe what evidence was recovered from the McMichaels home. Have you heard anything about that? Because it was always my interpretation that once the GBI did that search of the McMichaels home, they then arrested William Bryan. And William Bryan has said, his attorney has come forward and said, look, he committed no crime. He did nothing wrong, kept going on and saying that, you know, they're looking for their day. They're looking forward to their day in court. So do you have any information or can you speak about what led ultimately to the arrest of Mr. Bryan?
Mr. Bryan was ultimately arrested because of his role in the murder of Ahmaud Arbery, specifically that he used his truck to cut off Ahmaud's path on several occasions, or at least two or more occasions. He followed closely behind and he recorded. The more that we learn about the amount of coordination that took place in this murder, it seems that it was his responsibility to record, and that responsibility probably extended beyond just that day. These individuals in this community, this group, this posse, these vigilantes, they were expected to play a role in eventually hunting Ahmaud or whoever they suspected of burglarizing those homes down. It seems like on February 23rd.
That's a good point. I want to jump on that. Do you believe there are other people who are involved in this that haven't been charged? Because when we listened to the GBI last week, they said they don't plan for any further arrests. But do you believe there were neighbors who were involved in this that had a role that haven't been charged yet or should be charged?
You know, I think when we really look at it, there are probably some good-natured people involved in this, people who are concerned about crime in their community, people who wanted to help the group of men who were looking for this would-be trespasser. They're trying to help get them information. I don't think they all had any idea that these men had deadly intent, as they've expressed in social media posts and statements even prior to February 23rd, that they plan to use deadly force to stop this would-be trespasser. I think a lot of people were not aware of that and were coordinating or participating in this because they had been given apparent authority from law enforcement.
Do you think, are you anticipating the defense for the McMichaels? They say there's more to the story here. Does that concern you in the sense that, well, what are they talking about here? Did they discover something? Or do you basically have an idea of what they're going to be arguing at this point?
I think we have a pretty good idea of what they're going to be arguing. When they say there's more to the story, what they mean is they have a different interpretation of the facts. The facts are pretty much stagnant. We all agree that Ahmaud Arbery was in that community running, and that he was targeted by a group of white men who wanted to stop him. And when they couldn't successfully stop him, they killed him. Now they're going to say that that behavior is okay under the self-defense statutes because Ahmaud Arbery was the aggressor. They're going to say that they believed, even if it's not true, they're going to say that they believed he was a criminal trespasser and that their belief led them to believe that they could avail themselves of the citizen's arrest statute. I think that the evidence rightly interpreted as the prosecutors have begun to process points in the opposite direction. That they never had any authority to question Ahmaud, that there was less than probable cause or even reasonable suspicion to question Ahmaud Arbery, and that they certainly had no authority to use deadly force.
I want to move on to the investigation of the investigation. So we heard from Director Vic Reynolds. I'm going to show you something. This is from last week during the GBI's press conference, talking about their own investigation about what happened here and how this whole, why it took 2 months for there to be arrests. And this is what Vic Reynolds said, and then I want to ask you about it on the other side. Take a look.
question is what the status is regarding the investigation that we've been asked to do about potential prosecutorial misconduct. As you recall, we were asked by the Attorney General's office to conduct a separate and distinct investigation into that. The Bureau is doing that. I don't have a timeline on that, but I do anticipate it's not going to take us much longer to finish it. Once that's completed, what will procedurally happen is we will turn that file over to the Attorney General's office. They will be the deciding agency or entity in what, if anything, happens in that regard. Our agents, a separate team of agents, are conducting that investigation. And again, I don't have a definitive timeline, but I am confident in telling you that I don't anticipate it will be much longer until we're through with that.
Mr. Merritt, I want to clarify, what is the ultimate goal here? Is it to have the DAs who recuse themselves face criminal charges? Jackie Johnson, George Barnhill, do you believe they did something illegal? Or is the hope that the investigation will find that there was misconduct, of investigation on the federal and local level, and just hope that they lose their jobs? I mean, what is the end goal here?
The end goal is criminal charges as well as institutional, correction to the legal system there. The GBI has one role in that. They can pursue and gather evidence concerning state charges like possible prosecutorial misconduct or abuse of office. However, there is a parallel federal investigation going on that could bring federal charges against these men and women for their role in denying that community, specifically the Arbery family, procedural justice, for denying them their 14th Amendment protections of equal protections under the law. But yes, the goal is to get Jackie Johnson, George Barnhill, and any other member of that legal apparatus who effectively interfere with the constitutional rights of Ahmaud Arbery and his family, to have them criminally accountable and civilly accountable as well.
I understand you spoke to the U.S. Attorney. What is the latest? What do we not know about the investigation at that level?
The U.S. Attorney's Office has been in this investigation from the beginning. When I say from the beginning, since that video was released, the FBI agents were dispatched. The U.S. Attorney's Office was made aware of the situation, and they have coordinated with local law enforcement even before the GBI got involved. And so just as aggressively and as professionally as we have all seen the GBI handle their role in this investigation, we should know that there's a quieter investigation going on by the U.S. Attorney's Office, by the Department of Justice, that we should expect an equal amount of action from as well.
Mr. Merritt, thank you so much for taking the time. We're going to be hopefully staying in contact as this case progresses. Thank you again.
Thank you.